Alright, everybody, it is finally time for the Best in Show, where I'll be talking about my absolute favorite games of 2024. So, which games made it to the very top of the list this year? I'm glad all of you can join us for the year 2046 as we finally finish the Best of 2024 list. Tune in 3 more years, and I'll be able to reveal my favorite games of 2025. Now, for 2024, it has been a great year in terms of video games. We got to play a huge variety of them, from the strange to the straightforward, from unique takes to well executed ones. It was just a very varied year, and don't let any other YouTuber or streamer tell you that there were no good games being released. Nevertheless, it was a very bad year when it came to the game dev side, with many studios being closed, many people losing their jobs, and we still really haven't felt the full reverberations of this in 2025 yet. And it's going to be very depressing to see just where it will all kind of lay out or play out by the end of the year. Now, before we get to the best of 2024, here's a brief recap of my favorites from the previous categories. For my first pick, this is a game that a lot of you have been wondering where it was going to show up. You probably have seen a few comments as well, because I know all of you have watched every single video, right? But at this point, it should be obvious what that game is. My first pick for my absolute favorites of 2024 goes to UFO 50. UFO 50, again, is a collection of, well, 50 different games. And as someone who loves to study design and the kind of interplay of mechanics and systems, this is just an all-you-can-eat buffet of different mechanics, how these games can be played, and feels, again, as part of the point of the whole collection, as a long-lost time capsule of game design from the 80s through to the early 90s. Now, does every game in the collection hit? No. There are a few that I know I was not a fan of. I'm sure a few of you didn't like as well. But what we have here are just 50 very original takes on design. From a game that plays like a very solid deck builder, to even creating a Legend of Zelda meets Idle game, which is still an idea that I'm surprised no one else has really done before, up until UFO 50. If you have any interest in the understanding and study of design and play, this is a must-play collection. It's a very different, I think, goal as something like what Digital Eclipse is doing with their Gold Master series, where they have been trying to bring kind of the history and the story behind the game to life. Here we have basically just playable history or playable alternate history. And it's fascinating to examine each game to see, like, what was the decision making behind them? Because this is not a case of, developers creating their very first platformer or their very first shooter or adventure game. These are developers, again, who've been around for a long time, and they are able to kind of make a take of each one of these designs and use it or do it with a modern lens, or kind of with a modern lens looking backwards. Nothing was done, I think, by mistake or because they knew what they were doing. Each game was designed to act a very specific way to attract a very specific audience. And it is a amazing collection of different designs and the joy of also modern retro gameplay. Of being able to enjoy a game that is just a 2D side-scroller or just using pixel art. And we have played quite a lot of those over the years. Again, an easy recommendation from me, and I hope we can maybe get a UFO 50 for a SNES version, but who knows how long that would take for that one to come out. Part of the problem that I have with a lot of these survival crafters, building crafters, that kind of thing, is how the kind of things you're building just feel static. Yeah, you can build a house, but the only things you really need in said house is the bed, the crafting table, maybe one storage box, and everything else is just there for fluff. And it's one of the reasons why I just have really not enjoyed those types of games. I like crafting. I like being able to build something, to customize something. But I want that to matter. And my next pick is a game that does just that, with Pacific Drive. I always like games where your vehicle is a character in of itself. It's not the same as just controlling a car or controlling a boat or a plane, but that you are operating this vehicle, and how you build it, how you maintain it, what you put on it, affects how this will play or drive or fly or swim or whatever. And Pacific Drive has a very engaging loop of exploring the randomly generated spaces, dealing with anomalies, getting those resources, bringing them back, making your station wagon better, accidentally forgetting to fill up on gas, leave the battery on charge, and so on and so forth. It strikes a very interesting mix between a survival crafter and some of the kind of like mechanic sim games we've seen over the years. And I just really love this concept, and I want to see more developers explore this kind of customization when it comes to vehicle design, where, again, it's not just about plopping things on your vehicle. Now it can double jump. Now it can go through green doors. But being able to manipulate and change the properties of it and have that impact how you drive, explore, and etc. I, again, really enjoy this one. Another easy recommendation. And this is one that I'm curious for those of you who played it. Like, what did you ultimately think about its design? because it is, I think, very polarized. And I know there are discussions about its difficulty and balancing, and I would love to see like another take on this, or maybe we'll get an airplane one where you can carefully manage your plane before you accidentally crash into a building or a hilltop or just slam it down the ocean. But we will once again see where things will, I guess, lead down the road in the future. We only need to do a surprise reveal for my. We only need to do a surprise reveal for my next pick because it should be a very obvious one, and that is Balatro. As I said in the deck building video, this is a game that has really blown up over 2024, and it reminds me a lot when I played Slay the Spire, beyond just, of course, both being deck builders. I remember when I first played the build for Slay the Spire, I said, this game's going to do really damn well. And lo and behold, it did just that. And Bellagio has carried on that tradition. What we have here is just a perfect representation of the attraction of run-based design, as well as a brilliant streamlining of a lot of the rules and complexities of the genre. Balatro is a game where you can lose very quickly, as I'm sure all you have played have done just that. But it's also a game where retrying is incredibly fast, and your runs can go in 80 million directions with every single card and every single thing or joker that you put into it. This is perhaps the perfect gateway drug to introduce people to roguelike design. While a lot of people kind of got into the roguelike or roguelite elements of something like Returnal from a few years ago, Balatro, I think, does an even better job. This is a deck building roguelike through and through, but it's a game that is more about kind of the, I'm not sure how I want to put this, the kind of attraction of the scale or the endless scaling that can go into things. That to beat this game, at least on the lower blinds, or I'm sorry, the lower chips, is not that hard. But learning how everything connects to build your own critical thinking and start putting together how these jokers can intersect with your deck, which can intersect with your different tarot cards and interact in unusual ways. It's a game that fully and completely embraces the act of just, again, getting that brokenness out of a good roguelike. We've seen this before in previous games like The Binding of Isaac, Inscription, and it's something that I do feel more roguelike and roguelike developers need to either embrace or understand that attraction. That when the player gets that perfect combination of item A, C, L, and O, that the game is just completely destroyed by it, that's great. Is it going to happen every single time? Probably not. But to give the player all these different means, and again, there is no one true solution to Balatro. So many different things are being factored based on how you modify your deck, which jokers you get, which tarot cards you receive, that it becomes a puzzle on top of the roguelike elements. And it is going to be a game that I feel is going to be studied by a lot of people for years to come, as we are entering the gambling arc when it comes to indie dev, finally eclipsing the bullet heaven arc from the last few years. This is certainly not a surprising recommendation from me, just a phenomenal game, and certainly going to be one that I think we're going to hold up once again as a impressive example of what attracts people to RNG, to roguelike and roguelike design, and the idea of making this very easy to understand and very snappy to play. The game, for being a turn-based title where you're just putting cards down on the field, is very, energetic. It has amazing feel to it, as I said in the previous video. These are all kind of like flourishes and, aesthetics. This is something that more developers need to embrace. That Balatro is just basically an engine kind of roguelike. That it's about figuring out what is my win condition, how do I get to that, And how do I just keep scaling it up and up and up? It's the same things that, again, we have seen in so many deck builders, so many roguelikes and roguelites over the years. But it's presented in a way that is very easily consumable by everyone. Like we've said, everyone knows what playing cards are. Now, the Peggy board thinks that Bellagio is going to be teaching everyone how to gamble in real life. But what Bellagio does is that it takes something that everyone knows and understands and then uses that to turn it on its head. Yes, you'll be playing basic poker when you start, but soon you'll be getting like 6 of a kinds and super multiplier do double multi-ball bonuses and getting scores so high we can't even count them here. And I would love to talk to the developer about this. Like, that's someone gonna be someone who I would love to get on these casts because there's just so much to discuss about kind of building this game that I think more designers need to learn. Not again to, just copy Bellagio, but taking an idea like this and running with it. We've said so many times before that one of the beauties of indie development is being able to punch way up to deliver an experience that's unique and original that no one else is making. And Bellagio is now in that same category as the likes of Lethal Company, Vampire Survivors, FTL, Darkest Dungeon, and so on, that deliver an experience that you would never see from a major studio or AAA developer, and it does in a way that resonates with everyone. And with Bellagio, I think that is just quite literally everyone who has played it by now. So, again, I can just keep rattling on about how much it is a fantastic game. And if you haven't played it yet, go play it, and then you can come back and curse me for getting you addicted to it. We needed one really good action title for 2024, and my pick for one of my overall favorites is Nine Souls. The closest we've seen yet to a developer getting the feel and kind of the more parry or tactical style of high-speed combat that we saw from Sekiro. The fact that this came from a developer whose previous game was a slow, highly tense survival horror game to come to this is just shocking to me. What Nine Souls does really well, besides looking gorgeous and having a very solid aesthetic, is that the combat is front and center. This is a game where you will have to really get good if you want to have any chance at surviving. The true final boss is also the closest we've seen a 2D game get to the likes of Sword Saint Ishin as a true final test of the player's mastery and understanding of the mechanics. Now, unlike Bellagio, Nine Souls is not something that is brand new or 100% original that kind of changes the genre on its head. But what we have here is an exceptionally well executed take on Metroidvania, platforming, and 2D combat. As I was writing my book on Metroidvania design, I talked a lot about how Metroidvanias will tend to focus on exploration, movement, or combat. And Nine Souls is definitely a game that focuses a lot on its combat while still feeling amazingly well in terms of its platforming and movement tech. It can be a little bit tricky to navigate, but this is a game that it makes you feel really powerful to fight. But unlike a game like Guacamelee, where the enemies are just there to be basically training dummies for you to punch, here they punch back a lot. And this is a fantastic game to study, especially in terms of the feel and the timing for 2D combat. Because as we've said, there's a very big difference between designing a 3D combat game, like a Dark Souls, Elden Ring, and so on, and designing a 2D one. Getting the animations right, the tells, and especially the window for doing parrying is incredibly important. Because if any of those are off, it completely ruins the game. And this is not something you can just fix after the game is out. We've seen games that struggle because their combat just doesn't feel right at launch, and especially if you're trying to build a game that's supposed to be on the harder side. If your game is hard and people feel that's because it's cheap, they are going to throw that game out. So, just a phenomenal game, and I really want to see what developers are going to come up with next. Maybe they'll make another survival horror game. Maybe they'll make another action game. Maybe they'll make an action survival horror parry fest. Who knows? but definitely give Nine Souls a play if you're in the mood for a lot of challenge. For my next pick, it's a game that we actually went into 2025 to finish, and that is, of course, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. As I said in my RPG part, I really love RGG's take on a JRPG design, making it feel both familiar, yet still having some interesting and different elements to it that make it stand out from all the other games that we've played. From being able to instantly win low-level fights, the improvements to the job/skill inheritance system, the great story, the many side content, mini games, sub games, and more, and a really heartwarming story to boot, involving Ichiban and Kiryu. This is one of those entries that's going to be on the quicker side, because I already talked so much about this in my review of the original, or the first Like a Dragon. But with RGG going from being an action developer to having this kind of turn-based, well, spin-off/main game now, they've done a really great job of sidestepping a lot of the pain points and annoyances that we see from a lot of JRPGs. As I said in the previous video, we didn't get to play Metaphor for 2024, but from what I played the demo, it seemed like Atlus was also having similar thoughts in terms of trying to streamline a lot of the annoyances that come with JRPGs or very lengthy titles, and how it's so easy to kind of drone out or just completely fall out of interest in finishing them. With Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, we have a game that can be played for multiple ways, again, more content than I think most games had in 2024, and is just a really great follow-up, and it does show how much the developers have learned and improved on their formula, going from 7 to 8. Another easy recommendation, as I said, if you have any interest in the Yakuza games, this is a definite must-play, and I am all in for their next title, and whenever we hear the announcement about the next main branch, Like a Dragon game, we will certainly be there to play it. This one is definitely a play for anyone who's interested in seeing kind of a more modernized take on JRPG design, especially in terms of balancing a job system, different skills, different buffs, and just how much of an improvement it is over the previous game's JRPG formula. So, again, props to RGG for another standout title, and they have certainly been on a roll in recent years with kind of the Dragon's resurgence. For the final pick of 2024, and again, these are not in any particular order. I played over 200 games. I am not going to be trying to rate them in any particular order there. One of the things I've been thinking a lot about over recent years has been a way to kind of redefine or recontextualize strategy-based genres, turn-based, real-time, tower defense, and so on. And whenever a game does something different in the space, be it Mario plus Rabbids, playing through X-Pirates, and my final pick, Tetsugami, it kind of makes me interested in them all the more. Because strategy design has kind of been stuck, I think, in a lot of ways, especially in the 2010s. We've saw the complete kind of dissolving of Command & Conquer. StarCraft 2 has ended, and we're not hearing anything more about that. And it's kind of left the strategy genre in this weird place. People are still enjoying Age of Empires 2, but we really haven't seen too many brand new takes, or, again, original ways forward for the strategy genre. We, of course, had They Are Billions. Then we had kind of a spiritual follow with Age of Darkness, which didn't quite work for me along the same lines. And Tetsugami is a game that delivers as both an action title and a tower defense all in one. If you're trying to play the game as one or the other, it is not going to work for you. But I love the art style, and the aesthetics really remind me of playing something like Okami, which we're going to be getting an Okami, I think, remaster in 2025. And what this game does really well, again, is deliver a chocolate meets peanut butter style of gameplay, as you'll be running around the maps, hacking, slashing, putting up villagers in various spots as your quote-unquote towers. And as I said at the start of the section, I really want to see more takes on strategy design that go beyond just the stuff we've already seen. I already said how much I love playing Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth for the fact that it is very much a kind of contemporary and modernized take on a JRPG design from a developer that hasn't really made them before. It's why I really enjoyed, as another long-standing game that you guys know, Victor Vran, which is made by a developer who does city builders. That when you're doing something in a genre you're not, you have like tons and tons of experience in, it kind of leaves you with the freedom to really experiment and get weird and strange with the mechanics. And Kotetsugami is going to be this year's favorite of mine in terms of doing something that we really haven't seen before at this particular style or this particular scale. And Kotetsugami is going to be my favorite from 2024 as a game that we really haven't seen this particular style and scale of this gameplay. And like with Mario plus Rabbids before it, I really want to see more developers get creative with strategy design, be it turn-based or real-time. Because when I was writing my book on RTS that came out at the end of 2024, it ended on a very depressing note, because there really weren't too many brand new or, again, original takes on the horizon. One game that I definitely missed that we'll have to talk about when it comes out early access is Cataclysmo, which is trying to be kind of like in the stronghold style of castle building. And when it comes out early access, we are definitely going to play that. And for those of you watching this, as a final question before we wrap things up, can you think of a strategy game that's came out either recently or maybe over the last 4 or 5 years that we haven't talked about that did put an original spin? And again, I'm not just talking about just having a different art style or, borrowing from live service games. I mean a game that does something differently with these mechanics that we haven't seen before. So again, as all the games I recommend in today's video, definitely check out Kotetsugami. Of this list, maybe this and Pacific Drive are the two games that I feel are going to have like the highest churn. You're either going to be all in or all out on them, but you definitely deserve to play them and see if it works for you, because if it does, then you're going to find a very enjoyable one, and I hope that we see more from the developer, or we see a continuation or some kind of new game like this, because I do feel like the strategy genre as a whole definitely needs some kind of shaking up to bring this up to par for modern audiences who didn't grow up playing those old man games like StarCraft or Command & Conquer. And who knows, maybe one of you is working on the next gen of RTS. If you are, let me know. But again, another easy recommendation from me, and a very favorable one as well. And with that, 2024 finally, at the end of January, comes to an end. What were your all-time favorite picks of 2024? Which one of my favorites do you vehemently disagree with, or do you agree completely? Let me know down in the comments. But with that, we can finally begin some very juicy, very depressing, and very interesting design topics, some more game reviews in these showcases, and more for 2025. So, thank you so much for watching. A special thank you to all the longtime fans who are still enjoying the content here on the channel. I do appreciate everyone who has been sticking around, hanging out on the Discord, telling me to get good during the streams, and I hope to see all of you throughout the rest of 2025. Thanks for watching, and a special thank you to our Patreon supporters. If you enjoyed the video, do the YouTubing stuff, be sure to visit our Discord and Patreon, and you're interested in more in my thoughts on design, check out my game design books.